Hi everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing my favorite books of 2023. As I discussed in my worst books of the year, this year was kind of a meh reading year. A lot of stuff I just don't feel like I have a lot of strong opinions about. A lot of these books I was like, didn't enjoy, honestly even actively enjoyed while reading, but just like have no feelings about now, just feel very neutral. And that's not the way I like to feel while reading. I like to feel things. I like to think about things for a long time after. And I just have stacks and stacks of books where I was like, yeah, okay, on to the next, I guess. But today we are going to be discussing the books that I did actively enjoy and think about and think were really good. So let us discuss. For my first and only honorable mention, I have to talk about Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. This is definitely like not my favorite book of all time. Personally, I think that the TV show, I think that Neil Gaiman did a really good job of adapting the TV show for a 2020 audience. I think the stuff that he added, the stuff that he took out, were a lot of good choices. This book is not perfect. It did not hold up perfectly. There's a whole huge section that I really was struggling and slogging through because Aziraphale and Crowley are not in that 100 pages. And we know that Neil knew this because he added stuff to that section in the TV show. While this isn't my favorite novel of all time, I did enjoy it, and I really enjoyed the audiobook experience of listening to David Tennant and Michael Sheen reprise their roles for the audiobook, as well as the actress who narrates God is the actual narrator of the audiobook that I listened to. Really enjoyed that. But this is in my honorable mentions because Good Omens kind of took over my life. I enjoyed the first season of Good Omens. From time to time, I would watch a YouTube compilation clip of Aziraphale and Crowley, but they were never, well, they were an OTP, but like they were never actively where I was like, I have to seek the fandom experience. I have to read the fanfics. Honestly, I was like, I'm very happy with the ending of Good Omens season 1. I don't need anything else. And then I got smacked with season 2, which I wasn't even sure I was going to watch at first, but I saw people getting excited about it, jumped on the hype train, and I am forever changed. This is my new big OTP. I have a lot of feelings about them. When I was in this kind of craze after the end of season 2, besides rewatching season 1 and season 2, I had to, of course, pick up the book for the first time and read it. Again, really enjoyable, really great audiobook experience, but like this just represents this time in my life right now, you know? Like Good Omens is a representation of the last 6 months, and it'll probably be a representation of my life until we get season 3, because this is my life now. A lot of fan fiction this year, all of it Good Omens, pretty much. They're my new fixation, basically. And I feel like they're gonna stay my fixation for a pretty long time. So that's how I know that this is a good thing. So before we get into books, let's cover my favorite manga this year. I have 2. One of them is going to be Apothecary Diaries. This is a comic book adaptation of a light novel series. Light novel in Japan basically means that it is like the shorter novels, and they have a more vignette style similar to a manga, like it feels more episodic, and it also includes pictures. Not as many pictures as a comic, but it does include some illustrations. So I have not read the original adaptation of this, but I started reading this comic when I saw that it was going to be adapted into a series. The anime being announced let me know that this was the thing. Started reading it, fell in love with it, absolutely obsessed about this. This is basically about our main character, Mao Mao, who lives in a court. I believe it is the Chinese court, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it is in a historical fiction setting. And Mao Mao works in the inner palace with all the court ladies. She was previously like kidnapped and like kind of sold off to work in the palace, and she's kind of moved up the ranks, not by her own volition, but because she's been kind of found out as an apothecary with a lot of smarts and wit and a skill for problem solving, being a great detective because of her prowess. I love a smart main character. She's kind of cold, kind of cat-like, just really enjoyable, fun protagonist to read from, and the love interest as well. Very like charming, very boisterous, kind of vanity prince style character. They complement each other really well. The series is a lot of fun to read. I really like the detective kind of setup for this series. It's really good. Highly recommend you check out the anime and definitely check out this series as well. It's beautifully illustrated, but this is one of my new favorite manga series. But it is adult. I will warn you, it is an adult series. There's nothing that happens that's super adult, but you know, there is like violence as well as prostitutes in it. And then the next series I have is Witch Hat Hotel, which is another adult series, more so because of, well, I wouldn't say it's graphic, but it has a lot of heavy themes in it, so be warned. But Witch Hat Altair is about a young girl named Coco who lives in a fantasy world where there are witches, but she is not a witch and she will never be a witch because she is not born a witch. Oh no, something happens. She suddenly is in the company of witches and she is learning to wield her witchly abilities. There is a lot about this that I really, really enjoy. The art is beautiful. The story is wonderful. It sometimes feels like a warm hug, but it also gets so dark. And it just feels like a nod to so many fantasy mangas as well as just like fantasy stories in general. Also so much its own thing. I'm so excited for when the anime eventually does come out. This is beautiful. I love it. It is so good. Getting into the novels, we're going to start with my favorite nonfiction. That would be Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmer. I loved this. It is in part like environmental warning story, part indigenous knowledge story. It's so good. One of the best nonfictions. Actively makes me feel like I want to read more science-y nonfiction, which is surprising, but loved this. Just really good, really interesting. I feel like foraging, nature, environment, any of that kind of stuff, definitely for you. Getting into short story collection, I have The Office of Historical Corrections by Danielle Evans. This is just a masterclass in contemporary literary fiction writing. Everything that I read was good. The novella at the end was good. The short stories were really good. They really walked the line between being complete fleshed out short stories, but also like leaving enough that there's something to think about. This is just excellent. They were just so good. So getting into the novellas before we get into the main novels, I have Ring Shout. This is basically a horror / historical fiction paranormal type story where Ku Klux Klan members turn into horrible monsters and our main characters are women, a team of women who fight these monsters. And again, this is just a masterclass in writing an excellent novella. Novellas are hard to write. Short stories are hard to write. Making them feel fleshed out, making you care about the characters, it's really hard to do, and I feel like this succeeded. It felt like it told a whole story that I could see in a 300, 400, 500 page book, but it did it in such a short span with really good writing. So yeah, I like this. And then the next novella I have is To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This is not my favorite Becky Chambers, but I really enjoyed this. This is definitely like the most literary Becky Chambers that I've read. It is a standalone, so you don't have to read any of her other series to read this, but this is basically about a space crew who is sent into space and they are going to these specific different little planets, but along the way something is happening to Earth and they're not sure if they should return to Earth or not. I love this. I love Becky Chambers. I loved seeing a even more literary approach from her. This was a tight, really well executed novella. Really enjoyed this. So I think the next category we're going to cover is going to be romance reads. I was kind of feeling in my romance era. I read a lot of queer romance books this year. A lot of them just were a really good time for me. But the one that sticks in my head still is going to be Delila Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. This kind of may have started it all. It definitely brought me down a rabbit hole of wanting to read all of this series, all of the Brightfall series, as well as just reading more queer romance books in general. But this, I think, really proved to me that yes, I like messy. I like characters struggling. I like them in their midlife or quarter-life crises. And I like a romance to be thrown on top of all of that mess. And this just delivered all of that. It was messy, it was cute, it was sexy, just everything that I want. Really enjoyed it. I like the rest of the series as well, but this just stands out as a favorite for me. And it stands out as my favorite of all the adult romance books that I read, but I'm still gonna explore more because I really enjoyed this. Another in the romance contemporary category, we have 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. And this is categorized in the fiction section, but it is mainly a big romance between these two characters. It is a second chance romance. They kind of had a relationship friendship in their teens. It was kind of a whirlwind romance, but they both had a lot of trauma and stuff that they were dealing with in their childhood. And so it's them meeting again. They're both now accomplished authors. It's them kind of falling back into this romance because of their connection, because of them understanding each other as kids, but it's also like them discovering and understanding each other as adults now too. It was just really good. Like, I was really invested in this book. I read it so so quickly. Really, really excellent. Again, it's technically categorized as literary fiction, so if you're looking for something more literary, this is definitely for you, but I highly recommend this. Really, really great. And then to finish out the romance section of this, we have my favorite fantasy romance, and that's going to be Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This book is just everything that I want. It is Regency, so you got the stuffy manners, but you got the fairy tale vibes. It felt a little Ella Enchanted, a little Howl's Moving Castle. It was just chef kiss perfect, everything that I want. Basically, our main character is cursed by a elf in her childhood. She only has half a soul now, and so she doesn't feel feelings the same way as everybody else. This can be kind of seen as an analogy for neurodivergence. The author is neurodivergent, and I just really connected with that character because of all of the ways that she was feeling and not able to really connect and feel accepted in society. And then it's her kind of stumbling into the wizard, or what is it? He's like the grand sorcerer or whatever of the kingdom, and her cousin is trying to set them up because she's like, he can fix your problem, and the main character's like, well, I don't really see it as a problem that needs to be fixed, but whatever. And they butt heads right away. He's just very temperamental, and she's like, you're a dick, I don't care, I'm gonna be mean to you. If you're gonna be awful, I'm gonna be awful back. And it's excellent. Great chemistry, great dynamic, great fairy tale aspect, just everything that I want. Fantasy, romance, just plot, characters, really good. There were like a couple things that I didn't love that this series did, because like, again, we're in a historical setting, so like, there's always going to be some weirdness around historical stuff, but overall, really, really good. Really, really recommend. Then the last category that I have is going to be the full fantasy novels. Let us start off with the standalone. So my favorite standalone fantasy sci-fi novel this year was Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. I think this was in part due to the audiobook narrator who just heightened the prose so much. The author is a poet, so I think just reading it and hearing it as spoken word really went into that kind of poetry. I'm reading the synopsis and it says, Good Omens meets Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Wow, two of my favorite things combined. Our main character has made a deal with the devil, and she has to basically reap these talented souls for hell. She stumbles across this young violinist who is a trans girl who is a runaway, struggling, but she's talented, so she's gonna be the next soul that our main character reaps. But things get complicated when a alien who have been disguising themselves as a donut shop kind of stumbles into the situation. It's sapphic, it's queer, it's obviously a lot going on. It's poetic though, it's beautifully written. There's trauma, there's some not nice stuff in here with transphobia and racism, but also there's like a sweet found family-ness that this was just a joy to read. I really enjoyed this, really looking forward to the rest of this author's work, but this just what I want. Weird, quirky, beautifully written, great characters, a kind of slowness and methodicalness, weird, good. And so the next two books I have are series. One of them is the first book in a series, and one of them is the final book in a series. So for the first book in a series, I have The First Sister, which is an adult sci-fi trilogy, and this is again the first book. This is another one that had a really, really good audiobook. It had 3 different narrators. It worked really well. They captured kind of essence, the fun of the characters, and this had a plot twist I did not see coming. I normally can predict plot twists a mile away, so I normally just don't care about them. Like if a book surprises me, cool, but like it's never my main motivation for reading, and if something is supposed to be a plot twist and I see it a mile away, I normally don't care. Honestly, I'm not really into plot twists. I think that they can be kind of cheap sometimes, but this was a good plot twist, and it was effective because I didn't see it coming, and I really should have because of everything that the story set up. But sci-fi world, there is one side that is very heavy technology and also military, and then the other side also military but in a different way. And on that side of the sphere, they have like this weird religion, cult, nunnery, sex thing going on. It's really good. I am excited to read the rest of this series because this book was so good. But yeah, 3 different perspectives, 2 different sides, space war going on, but it's really about these characters. Really good. I'm really excited for what this book set up. I'm really excited to see where we go from here. And then my last book, my other favorite of the year, is going to be Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. In some respects, this series is really slow to read. In some respects, there is a little bit of tedium. In some respects, this has an almost outdated style of writing. Like, it definitely feels like it's from the 90s with the writing style because we are so distant from the characters and stuff like that. But also, Robin Hobb is so effective. Like, this is a masterclass in writing really good fantasy, really character-driven fantasy. Excellent. I think about these characters, I think about their world, I think about what's going to happen next. Robin Hobb didn't try to make it gay. I don't think she likes it when we think of it as gay, but it is gay, in my opinion. I don't care. It's hard to read. The characters are frustrating. They are frustrating on purpose though, and it's just really, really effective, really, really good character-driven fantasy. But yeah, those are all the books that were my favorite this year. And I can tell they're my favorite because I had a really good time talking about them. I was excited to discuss them. They make me excited to find more books to read. I like certain books for very specific reasons. I don't really know if I can really quantify the reasons behind why I like things and why I don't like other things. The more I read, the more I discover. And so I'm hoping to continue that energy into 2024 and just continue to read things that I like, find new things, discuss new favorites. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you enjoyed this year. What were your new favorites? If you liked any of these books that I talked about, if you didn't like them, and why, of course. But as always, the algorithm is not a friend to small creators, so any comments, likes, subscribes, always appreciated. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading!